well, Trini, who's recently accepted an offer to join us as our product manager, and Laura, who works at Systems Advice Bureau. So feel free to catch people afterwards to have a chat, show them what we're up to and what we're doing. I think it'll go well. Yeah, that was the welcome. As most people here know, but probably for everyone, this is a snapshot of what we've done over the last sprint, not necessarily what we've done since we started the project, so just a bit of a snapshot. This is the agenda. We'll go through a few things in London, then we'll do a tech switch over, and we will swap to Leeds. So, our team. This is all of us, for anyone who doesn't know who's in the team or who we work with. Sorry, I was just checking that wasn't someone on Slack saying that they couldn't hear or something like that. We'll also do some introductions because we have some new joiners. So, first of all, sprint goals. This sprint, we have a goal to publish hernia, which we've not done just yet, but we are now very close. We finished the analysis from the last lab session. Start the simple conditions cluster, that has been started. I believe that Stephen and Kim started work on that. Beta research analysis, which was a half-day sort of time box, which has been done. Key hires, half done. I believe we made an offer to a clinician. We've now got a clinician coming. Okay, maybe half done. Half done. I don't think we've made it better.
I needs to speak to one of our things, which I think we recorded yesterday.
Okay.
And then I have to go through the questions.
Cool. And get ready for A/B testing, which has to be done this sprint. Register for the GP sprint goals. More research visits, a target of 4. That's half done. We can get 4, 2, and we are in Leeds again on Thursday. Start on user needs and scenarios. That's not done. We started the story map, but we haven't written up all of the user needs yet. Complete prototype journey based on GMS 1 form. That's the General Medical Services 1 form. That's the form you fill in when you want to register with GP. I'm not going to say too much apart from done. Matt J will show some stuff later, hopefully, when he arrives. Make friends at practices. We've made some more friends at practices, and that's ongoing. We're meeting with the Hurley group next week as well. They have quite a few practices across London, so that'd be a good contact. So, on to new joiners. We have 3 in London. So, Danielle, Wade, Stephen, and Tara. Leeds also have new joiners, and they'll introduce as part of their slide deck. Books. There is a gold star being awarded. Because it's in the book. On establishing design principles, that went out yesterday. If you've seen it, please retweet it, comment on it, that sort of thing, and share it more widely. So that's it. So over to the first flow, show and tell. Stephen.
Right. Hi, Stephen. I'm going to keep it brief. I'm a content designer. I've been working with Henrik and Kim. And the first thing we were doing in Sprint was just identifying themes and needs under simple conditions. So simple conditions are just basically things that people can usually fix themselves. You may not actually need to go to a GP to get a cure or that kind of thing. It's based on the top 24 of the top 200 needs that they established in the beta analysis, looking at all the analytics and things. And we were really just looking as content designers to try and identify themes that sit across all of these conditions so that there are easier ways to group them, so that when we come to do the content production, we can perhaps kind of increase our velocity and just get through the work a lot quicker. Also, it really helps us familiarise ourselves with the content, so we jumped onto Sam before he left and got a good kind of general background to some of the stuff. But it also helps us identify, or begin to identify user needs that sit within these conditions and try to group them. Again, that just really helps us as content designers think about how we're going to produce the content, get it written, and start to think of it more from a user focus and less perhaps get swayed by how things are currently presented and that kind of thing. This is just a very rough and ready post-it note because we all love post-it notes. So for example, we found out that within these simple conditions there are certain themes, so a lot of them are related to it's difficult to spot if you have a child because children obviously can't tell you their symptoms, and as an adult it can be quite difficult to actually identify what those symptoms can be, so help around there. Concerns around spreading the condition to other people or around your own body. So these are the kind of things that really help us think about it more from a user perspective than perhaps an NHS operator's perspective. And that's Oh, and I apologise for my hair.
Thank you. Hi everybody, I'm Gemma, I'm a user researcher. I'm just going to talk to you very briefly about the testing we did this week, this lab sprint. So we were in the lab a couple of times this sprint. We talked to 6 hernia patients. 3 were pre-operative and 3 post-operative to give us an overall view of their experience and then an understanding of how they react to the prototype, coming with their own experiences. So, in this sprint, we expanded the prototype to cover 2 additional use needs. So the first was, as someone who's going to have an operation, I need to know what the operation involves so that I'm familiar with what will happen to me. And the second was, as someone with a symptom, I need to confirm that a hernia is the cause of my symptoms, so I know I'll get the right care. So we incorporated those needs. And as such, we showed users some new so this is kind of an overview of what we showed. So we had an overview of what a hernia is, what it looks like, and what to do, and then what is a hernia, so the specifics of what a hernia is and descriptions of how they appear on the body, and then also an explanation of what happens during the operation. To give you an overview of just to give you some broad themes that we saw that really kind of validate what we've already heard. So pictures and diagrams help users to validate their symptoms. I think it was very clear that the image that we had here was really helpful in getting users to see what a hernia is and kind of relating it back to their own symptoms. We also found actually, so there was here, it's pixelated, but there was a kind of a diagram of what a hernia looks like, coupled with an explanation of exactly what it meant, and we found that was actually really, it was reassuring for people to have that explanation. We had people talking about describing their hernias as their alien and tumour and lump. They didn't really know what it was, so actually having a very clear explanation of what it was helpful. Also, having an explanation of why a hernia occurs was kind of reassuring to people. We found that also users needed to understand the worst case or emergency scenario so that they knew what to do if it happened to them. So in this example, a strangulated hernia is an emergency scenario. So we found that people were very quick to look at the information around the strangulated hernia so that they can understand whether it could happen to them and then therefore what they should do. So there were some broad themes. The idea is that we were testing this prototype so that we could publish it soon. And before we publish it, we'll be kind of making some further iterations. So things that we noticed in terms of the way that people behave with the prototype. This section here, kind of what to do about a hernia, which kind of directed people to information about the operation, the different types of hernia, an explanation of what is a hernia. We found didn't always work very well. It wasn't clear what users were supposed to do and what journey they should take from here to the other pieces of content. That's something we're going to look at before it's published. We also tested the 7 steps to surgery. We found, again, there are some iterations that we'll make before it's published. So, as an example, the first step, which is booking a hospital appointment with a surgeon, we found in this context that people assumed that they could self-refer. They assumed that if they click on the hospital appointment, they could go directly to the surgeon, kind of bypassing the GP. So that's something, before we publish, this step will be taken out so that people aren't confused by that. We found other things like people want very practical information when it comes to their recovery. So things like, can I pick up a full kettle of water, or kind of how heavy are the things that I can lift? So can I pick up a full kettle of water? Can I pick up a bag of sugar? How long will it last? How long will I be in pain for? So it's those kinds of things. So that's a really kind of broad overview. If anybody has any other questions or wants any more clarification, I can talk you through our board in much more detail, but that gives you a bit of a snapshot of what we found and what we're going to work when we publish.
Hi everyone. I've got to be on this side, I just got my notes. I'm just going to run you through just a couple of minutes on some of the design and content patterns which have come out of hernia. You saw the screens that Gemma presented before that shows you some of the overall structure of the pages that have been done. I'm just going to speak a few of the specifics about it. The reason we're doing this is the thinking then forms part of the pattern library that we then take forward to hopefully have a system design approach to roll out many pages and services very quickly, very easily. Here's the page Gemma presented earlier. This is the general page around hernia. There's some specifics around here which I'll pull out, which will then aid us in the patterns thinking, which is the way the page is structured specifically is around our action toward and then towards orientation. So we start speaking about what is a hernia, then we look at what the location is, where it's in the body, and as you slowly move through the journey, you have what is a hernia, and then there are actions around that, such as the operation you can take, or what specifics of what it takes you to get through surgery, or what happens on the day of your surgery. This overall structure here, what we call an assembly, is something which we may take forward by saying this is a potential structure of an element or a page which allows the user to orientate around their conditional symptom and then take action appropriate to that. However, within that, such as here, it can also have the same orientation and action as well too. And then moving forward, we're looking at specific elements within it, such as the image module here, which allows us to show multiple images in a single panel itself. We like this with hernia specifically because it allows us to show different areas of the body, or where hernia appears in different areas of the body, without having to use lots of space on the viewport in order to actually show that. But it also flexes to other areas, such as if you need to show a trajectory over an illness, so 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, a year, whatever, we can use it for that as well too. I mean, these are very simple at this stage, but the idea is not to overcomplicate them very early on, so that when we start to hit much more complicated conditions, we can either create a new pattern, or we can amend this one in order to improve it. And then we also look at how it may view within different viewport sizes and how the specific interactions around that. But then we'll then build this up into a specific component which will then publish, and then other people will be able to use and with their services that they roll out. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Dom, one of the developers on NHS.UK. So as well as continuing to look at the hernia work last sprint, we published some new content on type 2 diabetes. It was actually one of the first conditions we looked at during alpha, so it's kind of a long time in the making to go onto beta. Okay. So this is one of the pages. It's a kind of new set of content, so it's what we're calling a guide. Structured pages around one topic area. So there's a couple of new elements that we haven't yet seen on beta, including guide navigation or contents, and also some pagination to go to what we see as the next set of content for that guide. We've got quite a lot of analytics and metrics around that, working with Kenny leads to see how people navigate between the steps. So there's also some in-page navigation, so we're going to see what people's journey is like and continue to iterate these plans. So it's quite a short one. Go have a look. It's condition/type 2 diabetes. We're tested quite well, so we're quite excited to get some real feedback on it. Let's start that.
Also, just saying that content went up to the National Clinical Director for Obesity and Diabetes as well, so it's gone through policy cycles, which I sort of been an extra time in the way that they came back very positive on that. Done? Sorry.
I managed to get that bed on the wrong side there. Right, register with the GP. If you're not interested in postcode lookups, now's the time to look away. I'm going to try and do a live demo. Is that the computer that's plugged into the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, here goes nothing.
So you can sit down over there, I'll spin you around so you can see me.
Well, this is what a man is on the computer.
Yeah.
Right then, so we've been starting to build out the register with a GP prototype, which is essentially at the moment pretty much like an online translation of the purple GMS1 form, so the standard purple form that you get to register full-time with a GP. This is kind of dull, but it's kind of interesting at the same time. So looking up addresses is one of those things where it should be really like super easy, and then sometimes it kind of isn't. You go from like one end of the scale, which is like, here's a text area, write in your whole address as you would on an envelope. It's kind of good for users who are filling it in a way that it lets them enter the data in the exact way that they want to do it, but it adds a burden of work to what they have to do. They have to fill in kind of several lines of typing and stuff like that. It also adds a bit of a burden on the back end in that you've got to kind of restructure the data if you need it to be structured. The other end of the scale is the kind of fancy sort of, you've all had it on, you know, when you're getting your credit card or whatever, where you type in your postcode and then you basically get like a pop-up list of like a million different addresses and you've got to pick your address on them. And, you know, if your landlord hasn't told the bank that you're living in a subdivided building, then your address won't show up and then you have to go and add it in manually and all this kind of thing. So this is just a fun little twist on that we thought we'd try out while we're building this. So essentially it's just a dull postcode lookup, but say if but what we're trying to do basically is sort of get to a halfway house of, it's a lookup, but we want it to try and do some of the hard work for you, in that essentially if we can get like your building number, we can query the address strings that a normal postcode finder will bring back. It would normally bring back like 16 for that. So hopefully in some cases we can just give you like one address and you can be like, bosh, right, great, done. And then basically and this is kind of the slightly more interesting bit, I guess, is how we handle the fallback. So if I live in Jeff Bridges in that postcode, we don't actually have an exact match for it. So what we're thinking of trying to do is basically just sort of fall back to the kind of more standard address thing. So we'll just give you all the kind of addresses that are in that, and you can find the one that you need. And that's it really. So, you know.
What happens if your landlord has subdivided your flat and not told you? Presumably your address won't show up in that.
We essentially need to build in the third step, which will be like, I'm going to enter my address manually. And there might be some fun around, like we could pre-fill parts of it and stuff like that. At the moment we're just, the main thing is kind of getting like a decent query down. And yeah, so, sorry, it's my mum. So yeah, basically, you know, work continues on the prototype to get into a full journey. Hopefully, we're going to Street Lane in Leeds on Thursday. And if people have time, we'll run them through this in the waiting room and just see what reactions we get. And I'll be able to get kind of interaction notes, but we'll also be able to kind of get ideas around where these questions come from and how people react to them, how people handle them, stuff like that. So it's not really the proposition; it's a prototype that basically helps us kind of find some answers. So that should be quite interesting. Cheers. I have to try and get back to the to this one. Yeah. All right. That was me. Cheers. Let's check for the weird things. The what?
Magic file. It's really costly or something.
I did believe it. Should have left it now.
My parents thought, oh, you're saying you've got
Right, we can see you.
Cool. You hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I'll put ours on mute for the time being.
Yeah, lovely.
We'll obviously be clapping, so we'll put it on mute now.
Cool, thank you. Okay, right, welcome to the Leeds part of today's show and tell. Hello London. So we've just got a couple of little things to show today. I'll talk about our goals first and give a bit of an update on staffing and hiring in Leeds as well. So main goal is about getting this pharmacy connection onto the stomachache page on beta.nhs.uk. We're nearly there, but not quite. A few little things to sort out before we get that done, but we are progressing towards that. And the other goal was to write up some of the user research that Ian had done at a pharmacy that he went and visited, so that got done. On hiring in Leeds, so we finally got a content designer starting on the 7th of November, I think is the latest date for that. We're offering to a user researcher, we're talking to some other user researchers, we're talking to a designer early next week for a second interview, and we're kind of always talking to a few other people as well. We met, I put the developers that we met someone last week, met a lady who's kind of more in the DevOps and test automation space, who's really interesting, so we're going to have a chat about whether that would be of use to us right now. And we've offered to a delivery manager, but there's a few ongoing discussions about that. So things are progressing in terms of like building out the team here in Leeds, which is good. And on that we have Nick joining us. Welcome to Nick. Nick's product manager. He's worked previously at the BBC and Ministry of Justice and most recently Co-op. So we're really pleased to have Nick on board. Slight false start last week, but in properly now, so that's really good. Really pleased to have Nick in. And on a sadder note, we have to say farewell to Ian Franklin. Thanks Dom for this image. Ian's going to work on the citizen identity team, so he's not even going very far away. We'll see you tomorrow, but probably just at a different desk. Yeah. But yeah, Ian's leaving our team to go and help out some of the other teams with user research. I think that's it from me. So we're going to go straight into Ian and Steve are going to talk about the thing we're actually building. Show a bit of a demo of it.
It worked very well, I don't think, because hello. So I think this is going to be a bit tricky because I kind of need to be able to control a website.
There you go.
Yeah, that'll work. When he sits there and then you stand behind him, Steve.
Well, I'll control it.
If you sit there,
yeah, you can be the face.
You sit there, and I'll be like this above you.
Yeah, so I kind of need to
just come to your left a bit, Steve.
Okay, well, let's go on to the first slide. Is that it? Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so just to remind ourselves, I'm crouching down like this, like a campfire. So this is the user need that we're focusing on, and there's plenty of other stuff underneath this, which is sort of, alright, acceptance criteria. we just remind ourselves, because there's a lot of new faces around at the moment, is as someone with a symptom, I want to know I can go for the right care. We've used our prompt from the stomachache page, and then as part of this sprint we've swarmed. So a lot of other stuff is like sort of been pushed to one side, so we can just focus on getting this to a beta URL as soon as possible. Which puts it onto your queue, yeah?
My queue, okay. So next slide, not quite as slick as Matt's, but hopefully we can go and do a bit of a live demo as well. Okay, so I think what we'll probably do, it's a bit difficult because I need to control, I kind of need to try and talk to people here and be conscious of not blocking the screen. So I'll kind of walk through this and you can jump in.
Yeah. It's mainly the work you guys have been doing.
Yeah, moment. Okay, so I guess the first thing of note is look at that URL. And there's no clever head.
What's that URL? Is that beta.nhs.uk/finder?
Well, I think it might well be.
Wow, well, that's fantastic. How long has that taken?
So in order to get this here it's taken quite a considerable amount of time, a lot of talking to different people. So last show and tell, we kind of mentioned that we wanted to get this off onto beta, and Dom got in touch and told us about some work that Dan and others had done earlier on to understand how the kind of structure of the domain in terms of whether it was a subdomain or routing would work. So that kind of instigated a whole bunch of other talking amongst people, including the infrastructure team in Choices in Leeds. So Neil Moran's been a big part of this, and Paul Houghton. But yeah, we've got it. So this is now there, which is quite a big step forward, I think, so for us all. And I think so. This page, isn't actually a page that people are going to be seeing, because neither is this one. So this is kind of the version of the stomachache page within our application. And as Joe mentioned earlier, we've not quite got this to the point of if I went to beta NHS conditions stomachache, this page is different to that one. So our next bit is to kind of put the door on to the existing stomachache page, and that door is effectively this link here, amongst some other styling. So these two pages, this one and the previous one, aren't going to be hosted within this application and accessible to members of the public. Do you want to mention some changes that have happened?
There's not too much to talk around on this one, other than on this page, on some of the other condition pages and symptom pages, there was this little intro. We didn't have an intro about what a stomachache was, not particularly fussed whether it's there or not. We've just tried to make sure that there's a consistent pattern if we're doing that on other symptom condition pages. Do we need it on here? Does everyone know what stomachache is? And this find a pharmacy near you, this is just the starting point, as we keep saying. It's not got much in the way of styling at the moment. We haven't had much time to do any proper testing on it. That's the thing we really want to do next. We've only got Ian as a researcher, and Ian's been focused on actually going to pharmacies and stuff like that. So actually doing this sort of stuff in a lab is a thing we're missing, but we're going to move on to that quite quickly. So we've just kept that quite simple, downplayed. There's been all sorts of options just to keep it straightforward. The blue borders come back in after talking to Tim down in London, because that's a pattern they're in there. We feel people are sort of drawn to this straight away and think this is a sort of summary from our research, but let's test it again and see where we go. And we've pulled the NHS 111 thing just up a little bit in terms of a test, because we've had people kind of like missing it at the bottom, and I've spent a lot of time over the past 2 sprints with the 111 team and seeing the work that they've been doing about bringing that online as well. And when we've shown this to people, I did some pop-up stuff a couple of weekends ago, where I went in and spent some time with 12 more older people than we are. They were drawn to that, but not that it grabbed their attention, and previously they'd completely missed it underneath as well. So there's some stuff we need to do around that, but it's small stuff at the moment. We'll test it.
Okay, so we're now entering kind of the main application that we've been working on, which is this. So we've got this front page, and there's been a bit of a change around here. I want to mention the combination. So
So previously there were 2 pages on here, had a design crit with all the other designers who are down in London, so it was them versus me in a way. But the suggestion was that we push the 2 pages together. So previously we had a page that reminded people this is why you're here. There was a question under there saying could you get there by yourself? It was felt that the could you get there by yourself thing needed a bit more work. Rather than kind of do it a disservice and do it badly, we've pulled it out and then we've pushed the enter a postcode thing onto this page. This is an earlier version of this page currently sitting off here at the moment. Myself and Michael have done some more work on that, so somewhere in the flow there's another version of this page that will come up where spacing sort of dealt with, and there's a little back button under there. You might have seen the back button that Matt had put onto his register with a GP prototype as well. We found when people come to this page that they kind of go, oh right, it doesn't suit my needs, and they need some sort of cue to go backwards. We'll share that later.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the details of how the application works, but not in too much detail. If anyone does want some additional detail, just get in touch with me later on. So the kind of thing that we've been focusing on the past couple of weeks is re-architecting the way the application works. Previously, when I clicked this continue button, what we were doing in the kind of before the last couple of weeks, that request went off to an API that is available on NHS Traces, the syndication API. That provided a postcode lookup, and as part of the results, it returned us a bunch of organisations. We've totally changed that now. So when you click, so we do a postcode lookup via a third-party postcode service. Off the back of that, we then go and interrogate what is effectively a data file within the application. At the moment, we don't need the database. It's just really quick. Yeah, I'm sure there was some other stuff I wanted to say.
That's been a big bit of work though, hasn't it? You've completely rebuilt the way that we get the information for this to be a thing we make live.
Yeah, so we're using another data source now. So previously we went to the syndication API and that kind of provided everything for us. What we do now is use an ODS data file of the pharmacies. That seeds us with all of the ODS codes. And then off the back of those ODS codes, we go to another API that's available on Choices, the organisation API, and we get all that data, and we store that in a file, and it's just really rapid access, and allows us to do things much quicker with no reliance in real time on this API.
So when did you get that? When did you get that position of it was working? You sort of had your head down, haven't you, for a couple of sprints getting on with that yourself and Neil?
Yeah, I think probably yesterday at some point.
Yesterday, okay.
Oh, look at this.
Oh, this.
Look at this brilliant little labelling here. Open now. Does that mean that all these pharmacies are open right now?
So this is a small thing design-wise, but previously when they came to this page, we didn't really have a mechanism that really kind of showed people like it was open now quite clearly, and then there was all pharmacies. We need to do a lot more work around this to make sure that this does work for users. But I think with the work that Steve and Neil have been doing in terms of getting the live data into this, we've sort of put this into here for now to help us get to that. And if you click on all pharmacies, it reloads this page at the moment and shows all the pharmacies that are currently open. We need to do a bit of work around this, so it could be that it doesn't reload the page. Look at the language we use on this, and that's basically we're in the position now where we really want to sweat it. Now we've got the technical architecture in place, which is great. It's a great place to be.
And do you know what? We've actually got all of the information for both of those kind of pages in each of these pages because I was lazy and I knew it was coming up, so I did that. Oh, look, what's this down here? This kind of black pop-up poll thing.
I think is Ian going to talk about?
Well, that
could be a nice cue. That one of the other things worth mentioning. Michael has spent his first sprint with us just now. He's the past 2 weeks, it's also been an opportunity for Michael to understand the work that Dom and some of the other guys have been doing out in London as well. So it's been a good little project where everyone sort of acclimatised, progressed things, and got ourselves to the point where the next sprint, it's exciting where we can go from it now. I think we've been waiting for this for a few sprints, haven't we?
Indeed, yeah.
Anyway, thanks a lot.
Do you want me to just sit here and just kind of in case? Yeah.
And this little questionnaire that pops up, it's only got three questions. So the first one, did you find the pharmacy information useful? Yes or no. Yes or no then takes you to a slightly differently worded question. The no one says what was missing, how do we make it better. This one just says how could we make this better. Somebody can type some text in if they want. And then it only does 10 point scales. This is the traditional net promoter scale, and we'll just get this will just give a really quick temperature check. Did you like it or not? Would you tell other people about it? Really looking forward to seeing what comes out of that, because I think if this works well, we'll have a tool whereby you could literally have a poll for every page. Really easy to set up, really easy to change. The most work you have to do is sit down as a team and decide what questions you have to ask and why. But the technical aspect of setting that was really easy. So, thank you.
So, and I think that concludes our section on the live demo. All right, thanks. Is there anything else that needs to go on? Oh, yeah, Neil. Over to Neil.
Hi, I'm Neil. I'm a developer working on the Connecting Services team, and apologies for chewing gum. I have a very dry mouth, and it helps. I don't know, has anybody been to a hack day before? NHS hack day? Cool. So this one was a couple of weekends ago. It was at the Core in Newcastle, and for those of you who don't know, the format of ironically it's over 2 days, or maybe not ironically, but it's over 2 days, and the format is people with ideas and people who can help implement or come up with solutions to those ideas come together. So it starts off with a pitch, and after the pitches there's a bit of mingling where you go and find out more information about the various pitches. There was probably around a dozen, maybe a little bit more pitches, a bit of time mingling, finding out a bit more about the problem, and then build the stuff over a couple of days, and at the end the aim is to present what you've built, and there were prizes.
Did you win any?
I'll come on to that. So for me, the top 3 projects over the whole weekend were a really nice project that was about, for people with rare conditions, they often end up more of an expert on the problem than the clinicians treating them. And the person that was pitching for this wanted a way of inverting traditional research so that these people who are doing little experiments, so there are no, they're often carrying out, if I try this in combination with this, will it work? And they're getting data, and they wanted a way of feeding that back up. So as families, they could contribute to research rather than just be passive participants in research. And that was the one that won the prize, and I thought that was really good. There was also another one about Fitbits and about tracking in people with, say, cerebral palsy. They get a lot of sporadic movements, and it's difficult for them to reflect back on time to work out whether a particular drug has been better or worse. And what they wanted to do was use a Fitbit to try and distinguish between sporadic and non-sporadic movements. That was really cool. And then there was another one from a chap who had a child with autism who found it really difficult to track events. He was being asked when he went along to clinic, when did she say this word and how was she in this situation? And he wanted a way of really easily tracking these events without having to type stuff into a diary, which is a typical way of doing things. So those were the 3 standout ones for me. And when I turned up, I was hoping to work on something new and exciting, and I wanted to work on something mobile. But when I turned up, Lucille pitched about community dental clinics, and they wanted to be able to locate community dental clinics. which sounds very familiar to me. It's a bit of a finder. And the problem with community dental clinics is they're fairly poorly served on choices or on syndication API, in that if you try and search by dentist, it doesn't separate out community dental clinics from others. And the thing that's special about community dental clinics is that they are often the treatment of last resort for many, many patients. So a typical example would be somebody who's morbidly obese. The dentist needs to have hoists. Somebody with a child with autism. Most, at the far end of the spectrum, most high street dentists will not treat a patient, a child with autism. And so they have nowhere else to go. But you can't find one. Choices, you can't find one in choices. So Lucille has managed to get a data set from here, from NHS Digital, including ODS codes for these community dentists. And what we did was use the power of open source. Somebody in the past decided that we should develop in the open, and I think that is a fantastic decision. Because what we did was we forked our repo and spent our time hacking together something which searched the syndication APIs for community dental services. And it was good fun, and I learned that I don't understand JavaScript as much as I thought I did. And I learned that data is pretty poor. There's some big holes in data that NHS Digital provides. But probably the most important thing that came out of all of this is the knowledge, the understanding of the problem, and that the slightly different perspective there is. I think we talk about pharmacies, finding pharmacies, and it's easy to get yourself into a mindset that really we're building a finder. And what this showed me is that there's a population of people out there that need to connect with services, and the reason they need to connect with them is not because they want to find a dentist. What they want is because of their complex medical condition, they need to find care that can deal with them. So community dental care isn't about complex dental problems, it's mostly about complex medical problems that make dental treatment hard. So we had, we tried to, during the hack day, we tried to go out and get feedback we created a simple Google form, and I tried to get an understanding of what the needs were around this. So we heard from a GP who didn't know that they could refer to a community dentist. We also heard from a parent of a child with autism who was one of the participants in the hack day, who didn't realise that he thought he'd have to take his autistic child to a specialist private dentist. He didn't know about community dentists. And this is a quote from a community dentist, where people who, particularly heroin addicts, have horrendous dental problems, and typically they won't be seen by a high street dentist. It prevents them from just interacting with society. They want to, look good for a job interview. They want to have good dental treatment. So this was another thing. So there's kind of lots of needs in there. I think that one of the things is that that often the patient won't be seeking this care. Somebody caring for them or professionally related to them will be seeking care. So typically somebody like a district nurse might be seeking community dental care for a heroin addict. That kind of path. So what I found is that it allowed me to take a step back from what we're doing. And I mean, we're not building a pharmacy finder, but sometimes it can feel like that. What we're building is something which connects people to care based on their context, and it's much more complicated than just a stripped down 111 online light or a pharmacy finder. It's much bigger than that, and taking part in this was a really good experience for me, and it's kind of given me a feel for what we can achieve down the line. And that's it. Thank you.
think that's it from Leeds. So we've got some time to ask some questions. How did it again? So we're not on mute. Linda's still on mute, I think.
Not anymore.
Cool. So should we start here, Matt? Does anyone here in Leeds have any questions for either on the things we've just shown or the things that were shown in London and so on? I have a quick question, really quick one from Matt J. What tech are you using for that address list?
What tech are you using for the address
I can't remember. There's something called getaddress.io. We bought a year worth of it for like £100 or something. But yeah, Steve and Neil know what it is, and I can't remember what the web address is.
I do remember seeing that on Slack. Yeah. Okay.
The simple kind of, all it does is do postcode to UK address. So it's not like it's not a geo thing. It's literally just an API to do that and do it quickly and easily. So for prototyping, it's really handy. It's not massively sophisticated, but it just works.
Cool. Sounds good. I'm going to just turn the laptop around. Any other questions from anyone up here? I'll ask another one then. Neil, is there anything like that thing you built at the Hack Day? Is anything going to happen with it? Is someone going to take it further?
So the outcome from Lucille, as I said, the thing that was the most important was our understanding. And Lucille, who made the original pitch, actually pivoted what she wanted.
Joe, you just muted by accident.
Oh.
Or your hand over the speaker or something.
Oh, maybe I had my hand on the mic. Sorry.
The question was about what's going to happen with the finder.
Yeah.
And so I think there was an understanding that it's the referral process that's actually hard. People don't know whether they can refer or not. They don't know whether they can self-refer or not. So what she was going to go away and do was put together some business proposal. I need to talk to Lucille a little bit more, but I think she wants to take it further, and what she's realised is she would like to focus more on the referral process, because typically it's not patients themselves that are looking for care, it's their carers that are looking for care.
Cool. Sounds like something we're going to have to tackle here as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it has a direct, it's directly related to what we're doing now. It is actually in the document that was circulated about the proposal. They mentioned the community handle in.
Cool. Thanks, Neil. Any other questions from Leeds? You got any questions on in London, Matt?
Matt, Jay has a question?
It's not a question. Neil, that was brilliant.
Anyone got any other questions, colleagues in Leeds or here?
I've got a quick question on the hernia page. Gemma, on one of those hernia pages, at the top right, there's a box that says, see your GP now or go to A&E. And I just wondered what, when we're talking about demands on services, why those two are together with the title and how we're tracking what impact that might have on patients. I don't know, it was the first, I think it jumped out, it was the first time I've seen GP or A&E together in a box. In terms of tracking that, I mean, we haven't got that far, but again, I mean, because that box kind of what to do, it kind of gives on what symptoms you should be looking for, and then kind of what you should do as a result. I guess in my head it's GP and A&E being on par, and we've not done that before. We've said see a GP, we've said go to A&E, we've never said do one or the other.
Yeah. They're actually not on the car. Generally, the reason we have that sidebar aside, that people tend to read short bits of content in a very compartmentalised way. So even though visually they look like they're on the page on a similar level, they don't actually read it that way because visually they're very different. The central one is quite wide, different colour, its structure of its content within it, in terms of how it directs users to take action is very different to how the emergency or support emergency box is written. So they tend to see one or the other, but never both, and they never seem related. They're visually that much different. They're very different to their structure.
I thought it was one box. Yeah, it says it in the...
No one in any of our research can cover it.
No, it's not my question with understanding it, it's my question with they're both... A&E's above more emergency and GP's not. It's just me.
Oh, right, the actual component of the
Yeah.
I mean, we built that as a halfway house between it's not urgent, but it's not a minor ailment. Because a strangulated hernia does require some very serious treatment. And so we're looking at that as a way of saying, okay, don't go to a GP, you need to go to somewhere which delivers urgent care in some description. So maybe that we look at that in terms of, most people just went down to strangulated hernia. So they orientate themselves around the symptoms itself, not the action they can take from it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's all read as this is the urgent thing, and it's urgent because I've got a strangulated hernia. But mine's not strangulated, so that's okay. That's sort of how they sort of went through that. But I can see what you mean by being on the path.
Yeah, no, I see what you, I'm just looking at that, I see what you mean, and I think what people were doing when they were looking at that was kind of, they would kind of go through, kind of cross-check, did I have this, did I have that, then no, this isn't for me, and I wouldn't go to A&E, but I see what you're saying, that they kind of, the same sentence.
Yeah, it just did what I was interested in, kind of how and why and what.
I mean, is it you should go to like an inch, and how you track that split and how you handle burden on the system is a different question, but the more important thing is you should probably try and go to a GP or not. You have to go to A&E because there's something very wrong with you. So it's kind of it's sort of like this halfway box between go to a GP normally, go to A&E, or like, it's kind of like, well, try and get an emergency appointment at a GP. If you can't, you're going to have to go and queue up at A&E because you do need to get this seen. But the tracking stuff,
Thanks all.
Cool. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Cool. Cheers.
We done. Cheers. See you later. Bye.